Hello friends, and welcome back to Rachel's Baking Corner. Today we will be making espresso brownies. Now there's so much more to this than just espresso. We're going to be browning butter and using dark chocolate. So that nutty, toasty brown butter, that rich, sharp espresso coffee, and then the complex dark chocolate, all working together to make a very mature and very delightful brownie. I have made this recipe before. I loved this recipe and I'm super excited to show you it today. So without further ado, let's talk ingredients, order of operations and tools, and then we'll get baking. Great. Now let's chat ingredients. First and foremost, we have 2 sticks of butter or 1 cup. I've left them whole because we will be browning them, so no need to melt or anything like that. Then we have 1½ cup of dark chocolate morsels, 1 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, 3 eggs I've already cracked and put into this bowl, room temperature, that's important. 1 cup of all-purpose flour, 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. So in this container here, I have 3 tablespoons of cocoa powder, 2 tablespoons of instant coffee granules, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, I used sea salt, and 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. I know, okay, the reason why I say that is there actually is no active ingredient in this recipe. No baking powder, baking soda, no leavening. That scares me a little bit. It makes sense because a brownie is the fudgier the better, so it doesn't really need a lot of leavening, but I like a little bit of cakiness to my brownies. So the first time I did this recipe, I did the same thing, so I know it will work for me. You totally don't have to include that, however. It's like my security blanket, my brownie security blanket. When it comes to tools, you just really need a mixing bowl for mixing. You don't need a mixer. You certainly can use one if you feel like it. The butter will be melted, so there's no heavy whipping that's going to be happening. I have my 8-inch square pan again, which has had multiple appearances on this channel as of recently. I have my rubber spatula and my whisk. This is all elbow grease today. And then here I have my induction stovetop, super mega not necessary. This is for my convenience of filming in front of you. You need a stovetop of some kind. You need a heating element of some kind to caramelize your butter because we will be making brown butter versus a regular butter in the brownie. So without further ado, we are going to whip this up and get it baking. All right, let me clear some things up. So first things first, let's brown this butter. My induction is a little loud, so just warning. We're gonna get this heated up and ready to go. We can plop the butter in right away. I'm gonna set this to a medium heat. We are going to have this melt and boil and then simmer on a medium heat for about 10 to 12 minutes. It's gonna crackle, it's gonna smell amazing. There might even be some white foam that kind of starts to build up. That's totally normal. You just need to stir this occasionally so that it doesn't burn on the bottom. And that 10 to 12 minute mark, what you're kind of looking for is some brown solids that are caramelized at the bottom. It'll smell really nutty and delicious. I fear my induction stovetop might cook it a little faster because it is really fast heating. So it's possible that it might be a little less amount of time. You can burn this, so you want to be careful. So just pay attention to your heat source, pay attention to if it's spattering a lot, and yeah. So I'm gonna just sit here and stir this pot and stare at it for about 10 to 12 minutes. Here's a time lapse of that, starting now. So here we are. It's kind of hard to see because the foam gets on top, but once you stir it around, you can see all of those caramelized bits. It was kind of hard to tell in the time lapse because of the foam, but now you can tell. Nice and caramelized. It smells so nutty and toasty and delicious. I've already turned my heat off. You want to turn it off, the heat, I should say, right when you think it's ready, if not slightly beforehand, because it will continue to cook. All right, so I'm going to gently move this aside. I'm going to get my chocolate. So it says to pour it into another container and then melt the chocolate into it. I'm going to just pour it directly into the chocolate. I don't really see the harm there. So we're going to just pour it on top. It's going to be nice and hot. We want to get all of those toasty bits from the bottom. That's the butter gold right there. Good. Okay, and I'm gonna whisk this together right away. I wanna start moving that around so none of the chocolate burns. I don't really think the chocolate could burn. It didn't say to let the butter come to room temperature or anything. All right, so we're just gonna mix this together until the chocolate has fully melted. It doesn't take long. All right, I'm gonna set this aside for a second. Let's get our mixing bowl. Now I did notice that the recipe actually says with your mixer running, do this on medium high speed, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's totally something you can do. It's probably a lot easier. But with brownies, I like to think if you can make them in a bowl with a whisk, it's the right kind of brownie recipe. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm picky like that. So let's get our 3 eggs. Plop those in here. And our sugar. All right, so now we are just going to whip together the eggs and the sugar until light and fluffy. If you're using a mixer, for like 2 to 3 minutes, until pale, light, and fluffy. Basically, the sugar is slicing through the eggs. The little sugar granules are slicing through the eggs and incorporating air. Today's arm day. Next, we are going to add our vanilla. I think it's at half a teaspoon. I measure with my heart. And we'll whisk that in. Real quick, let's get our cocoa, espresso, salt, and baking powder. We're going to whisk all of the ingredients into the flour. It doesn't mention it in the recipe, but I think I am going to run my dry ingredients through a fine mesh sieve or like a metal strainer, because cocoa has a tendency to be clumpy and hold its own in a little ball, and I don't really want that. So the recipe says with your mixer running or while stirring to slowly stream in the chocolate and butter mixture. So in order to make sure these eggs don't scramble, because it is still a bit warm, I'm going to be pouring it real slow. I'm going to start with just a little bit to temper my eggs. Hold on. There, that is going to make it to where I can stir one-handed. Okay, this is going to temper my eggs so that they don't scramble or cook while I'm adding the warm liquid. All right, so I'm going to use one hand to stir and the other hand to pour. I'm going to rest the bowl onto this bowl so that I can have a little bit of weight taken off my arm, and also so if it streams down the bowl, it'll hit the other bowl. So just a little bit to start. That's going to raise the temperature in the eggs slightly, then a little bit more. And that raises the temperature more. And now we're just going to slowly strain. I'm going to lift this up now. It smells amazing right away. I take it back. Use a hand mixer or something, unless you are already very buff. This is just a lot of stirring. And it's like getting thicker as you stir. Oh, I'm sweating. Now, the brown butter is already such a prominent smell. It smells so good. You know it's going to be a prominent flavor. What I'm excited though is when that warm brown butter starts to hit the espresso powder. Oh, it's gonna be good. Come on. I have my fine mesh sieve. Gonna just prop that up here. Plop that in. Good. Yeah, there's chunks of flour and cocoa that just haven't broken down. I want it to break down all the way. So I'm going to, you can pat the thing like this. That's what most people do. I notice if you just stir it in the strainer, it works just as good, if not a little faster, in my opinion. It says to gently fold the dry ingredients. I should have just taken my whisk out from the beginning. All right, let's scrape the sides down first and fold it in there. Okay, so just make sure you scrape the sides and bottom as you go. Make sure none of that flour or cocoa stuck to the bottom. It's a very sticky dough, obviously. I wouldn't call it dough, sorry, it's batter. Oh boy. You can just smell all of those rich ingredients. I'm so excited. I have my 8x8 pan. I have it greased with a square of parchment paper at the bottom to ensure there's no sticking. That's really important in a brownie recipe because brownies are dense and fudgy and they have a tendency to stick. Let's pour this in here. Gosh, it's almost like it thickened in that short period of time it sat there. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and take this real thick batter and spread it out in my pan. We just want it to be nice and even. I'm gonna do a little slamming action here, so hold on. Good. So that flattens it out a little bit. All right, so we are gonna get our oven preheated, 350 degrees. This is going to bake for 25 to 30 minutes. Honestly, if you like a fudgier brownie, like go under that time frame. Nothing hurts than a little bit of soft underdone brownie in the center. But like I said, I like mine a little more crispy on the outside, cakey on the inside. So I'm going to probably do closer to 30 minutes. And yeah, I'll see you in just a second. And we're back. We are back after it baked for 25 minutes. I forgot to mention you want to stab it with a cake tester or a toothpick, and when you pull it out, it may have some moist chocolate crumbs on it, but should be relatively clean other than that. About 25 minutes in the oven for me, and then I've been letting it rest for about 30 minutes now. You probably want it to rest longer, but I'm impatient, so we're gonna cut into this. Mine is definitely a little warm still, but oh well, who doesn't like a warm brownie? We've got a really beautiful shape, a really even crust, some nice cracking like you would expect from a brownie. So we're gonna cut this up and give it a try. Here are our brownies. Some great cracks and a nice glossy surface. Real thick and fudgy. Ugh, they will set more as they cool, I will say that. And personally, I love these out of the fridge. All right, let me get close. Hey there. We've got the brownie. You can really tell there's some rich butter and espresso and cocoa and dark chocolate. Let's give it a taste. So good. That salt is really needed. I almost wouldn't be against having some flaky salt on top if you're bougie like that, but it just still has that cakiness while still being super moist and fudgy. It's so good. Focus, there we go. So you can see some air pockets from the cakiness. but still fudgy and moist and chocolatey and rich. So good. Wow. I think that about does it. I have a hot date with this tray of brownies. I hope you enjoyed this video. I highly recommend this recipe now that it's the second time I've made it. Seems pretty foolproof. You could tweak things around a little bit, of course, if you felt like it. Throw some chocolate chips in there, some flaky salt, like I said. Overbake it a little bit or underbake it a little bit. The world is your oyster. So thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please like it. I highly recommend you subscribe. I post video every Saturday. Leave a comment down below of any recommendations or recipes you'd like me to try. And I will see you very soon in my next video. Thank you. I love you. Goodbye.